So it's been a minute since I put up a video, but don't think Mark ain't cooking the books. I'm always cooking the books, always in the lab researching. So I want to talk real quick to you guys about hearing from God, like how to hear from God. Uh, the reason I want to talk about this one because I'm always in conversations about God with associates, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the conversations I was having with somebody, they say like, "Man, I've been praying for years and I ain't never hear from God." Like, people you hear that all the time. A lot of people give up. A lot of people give up uh, and it becomes this. They become discouraged, disheartened by not hearing from God. And this is what I hear a lot. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm on some pedestal and I'm better than nobody. I feel it too. There's times where I feel discouraged and disheartened, and I'm not hearing. Like I've been fasting, praying, studying, researching, and sometimes I feel like, yo, God, where are you? Like I need to hear from you. So I've been doing a lot of researching on how to hear from God, and I got some stuff I want to drop on you. Hopefully, this will encourage somebody. If I touch one person hard, then God, to God be the glory. Job well done. So check this out. How do you hear from God? Right? It's an art to hearing from God. A lot of people don't understand that. Praying to God every now and then, or even incessantly, does not necessitate or does not uh, necessitate is the wrong word, does not guarantee or ascertain that you will hear from God. Why is that? Because first of all, we got to go into science. We got to go into science to understand this stuff. This stuff is heavy. So bear with me. I'm gonna break it down as simply as possible. You have to understand how the earth and how the world works. The world itself can be looked at as a framework. It's a framework or a grid. Think of a grid, electrical grid. On the grid, there's various wires. All the wires are transporting energy elsewhere, and so on and so forth. Right? The earth is a grid. The wires on the earth, instead of wires, they're called frequencies. And there are let's just say there's innumerable frequencies. There's no number. There's more frequencies in the world than there is sand on the ocean. Grains of sand. That tells you it's gargantuan. There's a gargantuan amount of frequencies in the earth, on the earth, uh, as we know it. As I'm sitting here right now, there are an infinite amount of frequencies that are floating around me right now as I'm sitting here. As you're sitting there, it's with us constantly. Our body is a composition of nothing more or less than frequencies, right? When you look at an atom, inside of an atom, there's a quark, there's a proton. Inside of the proton, there's what? Nothing. It's completely empty. You know what's inside of it? Energy. Pure, unadulterated, unmitigated, unmixed energy. So that means the subset of all things, the substructure of all things is pure, unadulterated, unmitigated, raw energy. That energy, when I say frequency, is what frequencies are. Frequencies are nothing but electrical energies, right? That are moving at speed faster, that are moving at a rate faster than the speed of light. And we know the speed of light, I don't remember. I think it's 185,000 miles per second. I don't remember, but I think. Don't quote me. You can research the speed of light. Frequencies move faster than the speed of light. That means that it's think of a computer router. That the information frequencies are routing faster than the speed of light. That's faster than a nanosecond, fraction second. There is no quantify. You can't quantify the speed of a frequency. That's the point I'm trying to make. So now, where am I going? Why am I talking about frequencies and hearing from God? Okay, stay with me. We're going somewhere. I'm going to use some practical and everyday mechanisms or instruments that we are all familiar with. So therefore, we can gestate this very easily. We can digest this very easily. Think of your radio. Your radio has a knob, and it has a spectrum. Spectrum just simply means a bandwidth, right? There's you go from 0 to 100. I'm using simple terms, simple numbers. Don't say, oh no, it's not 0 to. I'm giving it simple. You have 0 to 100 on your radio. You have a knob. You turn that knob. One, two, three, four. Every number that you're going up the spectrum to, or up the band to, every number represents a frequency. Uh, or again, keeping it simple, every number represents a station. So when you turn to your knob to three, three might be Hot 97. When you go to four, four might be classical jazz. When you go to five, five might be reggae. I think you guys get my point. Every number represents a different station. Between one and two, there's a space. Between two and three, there's a space. Between three and four, there's a space. Five and six, so on, etc., so on and so forth. There's a space between each digit, each number. I'm using simplicity again. I'm speaking in very oversimplified terms, so even my 4-year-old daughter could understand this. And it's not to disrespect anyone's intelligence. It's a KISS principle. Keep it simple, simple, right? Between one and two, you have space. That space between one and two is why we're not hearing from God. I'm gonna let that sink. I'm gonna say it again. That space between one and two is why we don't hear from God. That space between one and two is where most of us are. Every single day. The average human being is between that space. And the space don't mean, it doesn't have to be localized between one and two. It could be localized between 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9. You have to know where you are on the frequency scale. We all vary. Everybody's on that. That radio band represents the earth. It represents the grid. All of us fit somewhere between 1 and 100 on that radio. We all there somewhere. Where you are is up to you as an individual. You have to do your own electromagnetic research and scrutinize yourself and find out where you are. Having said that, be that as that may be, the point is this. All of us, with exceptions of very few, right? I'm speaking very in broad and general terms here. Most of us are between a space of digits. We're mostly between space of digits, all of it. And we fluctuate. We don't just stay in one space. We fluctuate. Some days you wake up feeling good. Some days you wake up feeling down. Some days you wake up feeling sideways. Some days you wake up feeling right. Some days you wake up feeling left. Some days you wake up we're all fluctuating. And that's totally normal. Nothing's wrong with that. We're energy. Energy never stands still. First, look at Newtonian laws of motion in physics. Energy is always in motion, always moving. Nothing is ever solid and still. It's a perception, an illusion. So the point, or the why we don't hear from God is because we're between digits. What does that mean? That means we are not, let's get back to the radio thing. If you want to hear your song, a specific song playing, you got to tune into that specific station. If you're turning the knob and you get stuck in between Hot 97 and Kiss FM, you're not quite on either station. You're somewhere in the middle. What do you hear? You hear static. You might hear some kind of music, right? You'll hear something, but you can't quite get clarity. You're not going to get that song crisp sound, right? You're going to get what's called static, right? But if you tune the knob to the specific station, then you're going to get the specific from the broadcasting station. You're going to get specific songs. So if you tune to Hot 97, you're going to get the song. But if you're in the middle between Hot 97 and Kiss FM or hard rock or jazz, or if you're in the middle of any knob, if you're in the middle, you're going to get noise. And that's why a lot of us don't hear from God, because a lot of us are not tuned in. We haven't attuned our energy, our frequency, because all we are, like I said, the human body is nothing more or less than a mass of frequencies. That's all we are. I could prove it to you scientifically. We could break it down, but that's another video. So all we are just a mass of frequencies covered in what's called matter, which we call skin, flesh, and bones and organs. Okay? We're just the expression of those frequencies in what we call matter to exist in three-dimensional reality. That's all we are. So it's as simple as that. I believe it's Einstein that said everything is energy. That's all there is. Find the frequency of the reality that you want, match that frequency, and you have no choice but to get that reality. It's that simple. And that's Einstein. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's the point, And again, I'm going off topic, so let me get back on point. So the reason why we don't hear from God, so many of us, is because we're not attuned into the right frequency. Now, I know some Christians will probably be like, "Oh, that's New Age theology, or that's some kind of woo-woo science or pseudo science." It's not. It's physics. It's facts. Okay. People who would push back against the stuff I'm teaching or I'm saying are people who have kind of like stayed, like they made it to a certain grade. Think of it like this: you went to high school and stopped after high school. So now when you talk to people who went to Harvard or to some kind of 4-year, or they continued education to higher levels. When you talk to people who are on higher levels of education, and they're talking to you about calculus or advanced calculus and advanced algebra, you're going to, as a person who just went to high school algebra and stopped in high school, that's it. You're not going to be able to relate to what they're saying. You might, in your ignorance, you might get angry and push back at the things they're saying. You might not even be angry. You might naturally just push back because you can't comprehend, because you stopped at that level, whereas they continued. So the people who are in the church world who might push back at the things I'm saying is because they stopped at certain levels. They didn't really digest they didn't continue their spiritual ascension. Your whole life while you're alive is a spiritual ascension. Okay, you don't just graduate high school and it's like, okay, that's it, it's over, which is what so many people do in a secular sense. But in a spiritual sense, they do the same thing, right? Go to church, learn what the pastor tell you, and that's it. It's over. That's it. Jesus saved me, nothing else. You know what I'm saying? There's way more to God than what we can fathom. Way, way more. Erwin Schrödinger, Max Planck, Niels Bohr, Einstein, all these great minds, scientific minds. Trust me, God used every one of them to show himself to us. So none is without excuse. I think that's Romans chapter 1, verse 20. But anyway, the point is this. The reason we don't hear from God is because, again, we're not tuned into God's frequency. God has a specific frequency, just like Hot 97 has a specific frequency. Every radio station has a specific frequency. Although on that radio, there are a plethora of frequencies, right? On your television, there are a plethora of frequencies. You know what those frequencies are called on your television? Channels, right? In today's, with these smart TVs, you have 1,000 channels. That's 1,000 different frequencies, right? But you have to tune into one. You can only watch one. Right? We're not going to say, oh, well, they got TVs where you could have like a box, little boxes of different channels all on one set. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about, although they have all those little channels, it's one frequency that you can tune into to watch that one channel. You can't watch ESPN and ABC at the same time, though they exist simultaneously, because both ABC, CNBC, MSNBC, all the BCs, all these channels, they all exist simultaneously because they're all at the same time being transmitted to your television antenna or your radio receptor. It's always being transmitted simultaneously. However, you can only tune into one channel at a time. And if you try to listen to multiple channels at a time, then we get what I told you. You get static. You're not going to hear the music being played if you're stuck between FM, AM, or whatever. So the reason we don't hear from God is because a lot of the frequencies, a lot of the channels, I'm using terms that we're familiar with, a lot of channels are all around us 24/7. And these channels are we call them streams of consciousness. Right? We get these different streams of consciousness. You're thinking about your job. You're thinking about your kids. You're thinking about, did you make dinner? You're thinking about your husband. You're thinking about your wife. You're thinking, is your wife cheating? You're thinking, is your husband cheating? You're thinking, should you call the cops because your husband beat you up? You're thinking, should you call the cops? You're thinking, I just got fired because of coronavirus. How am I going to pay my bill? The point I'm trying to say is all those plethora of streams of consciousness, whether they're low, high states of consciousness, low states of consciousness, mediocre states of consciousness, they're all frequencies. Every thought that runs through your head is nothing more or less than a frequency. The reason why I say that, and what I mean by that, is every thought, if you study the nature of a thought, is an electrical impulse. That's all thoughts are. They're electrical impulses that's transmitted by generated either by yourself or transmitted by the ether. The ether meaning the Wi-Fi. Let's just use it like that. Things that's in your environment, whether it's this phone, social media, television, right? So all thoughts are electrical impulses that. Now, here's something that's interesting too. I was listening to Neil, I think his name Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think that's his name, but don't quote me on his name. But he said something that I was reading a couple months ago, that in particle quantum mechanics, right, particle science, particles pop into existence and back out of existence continuously in the quantum realm. And when I study that, and I study the quantum realm, and we are human beings ourselves being quantum systems. If you go in space and look down, we're quantum systems. When you understand that, then you understand what thoughts are. Thoughts pop into your mind and pop out of your mind. And they do this spontaneously and very sporadically and throughout your whole day, even while you're sleeping. That's why you have dreams and nightmares and so on and so forth. So, folks, it's very important that we understand the only reason we believe we're not, God is talking to us all the time. No different than Hot 97 is always broadcasting. ABC is always broadcasting. These stations are always broadcasting. Right, we're not in the 80s or the 70s or the 60s when TV signed off. Right, today stations are continuously broadcasting. Right, there's a continuum. So just like how these stations are continuously broadcasting, and it's up to us to tune in and listen to them, whether it's through our radios, TVs, phones, etc. God is always broadcasting. He's always sending messages to you. No different than your radio stations. He's constantly sending you information. But again, when there is put it like this, there is a race of frequencies. There is a race of the information, and your mind is these frequencies, these informations are competing for your mind. I like that. Your mind is the trophy. They have to get to you before the other frequencies do. So ABC, MSNBC, and all these, TV stations, radio stations, all the distractions have to get to your mind before the other frequencies do. And this is why we don't hear from God, because our receptors, right, which is the hippocampus, the neocortex, the occipital lobe. These are parts of the brain. The neocortex is parts of the brain that are designed, or their mechanisms to attune us. Right, the pineal gland. Right, your pineal gland secretes DMT. Your pituitary, all these glands, these parts of the brain are designed to attune our energy to God's frequency, so we can receive His message. But the reason, again, we don't hear from God is not that He ain't talking to us, is that we have too much going on, too much noise, too much static. So we need to fine tune, all right, tap into the right station, God frequency, and you'll get all the message to all that you need for your spiritual ascension and spiritual journey. Till next time, it's Mark here. Peace.